Welcome to Coffee, Eggs and Inspiration. It's a weekly show that goes out over YouTube and as a podcast over all of the major channels. And each week I get to sit with an inspiring person and listen to them tell their story and share it with all of you. This week is no different. I'm super excited to be joined by Zac Alsop from the Zac and Jay Show, a YouTuber. Welcome, Zac.
Thanks for having me, Craig. I'm glad we're finally doing this.
Amazing hat, by the way. I didn't bring my hat. I should have done that.
Yeah, I've been called Papa Smurf so many times today on meetings because of the blue and white combo.
That's a good point. Blue and white top. That's a good shout. Okay, so Papa Smurf is with us today. Zac is a YouTuber, as I said, one half of the Zac and Jay Show, a big YouTube channel, almost 800,000 subscribers, 58 million views of their content. Some videos more than 20 million just on a single video. And these guys are amazing. They have done some spectacular content, which I find really funny. Things like blagging their way onto the Team GB Olympic Parade float, which got some real notoriety, and that was on Zac's channel preceding the Zac and Jay Show. Faked a model, their friend Max, into the London Fashion Week, and did the same thing subsequently with a granny. The Max video, I think that was that's 22 million views, I think, and still climbing.
God, yeah, wow. It brings me back when you say it. It makes me laugh. And the granny one.
The granny, and you dressed them in these ridiculous things, right? Deliberately ridiculous things, and they were getting packed and interviewed by international media and all sorts of stuff. Fantastic.
Yeah. Elizabeth actually made it to Vogue, which I'm very proud of. But anyway, I'll let you carry on with your intro. It just made me laugh as you said it.
It made it to Vogue.
Yeah, Elizabeth did. She had a feature in Vogue, which was a little lifelong dream of hers. So yeah, well, we'll take that.
That is so funny. It's probably about now that I say I'm going to link these below, right? You have to guide me, by the way. You're actually
yeah. I'm not. You always you need to give the audience something to go to. So
yeah, I'll do cards as well. So cards up the top for these links. A lemonade stand outside Bill and Melinda Gates's house in Seattle. I think you actually sold some lemonade, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, it's up for debate, and if it was Melinda, then I regret that day to the day I die, because we had an opportunity there to pitch to the man and the woman herself, but we didn't. It was just one of those moments where we were so scared of getting shot. It was just in our heads that everyone had guns, and we were in such a high net worth area that everyone had private security. So in that moment, it was just so scary approaching the blacked out Range Rover that I just wasn't even looking properly. It was just, but we got $1 anyway. So who else can say that they got $1 off Melinda Gates?
Well, exactly. Well, quite a few people, I imagine. They're quite. Anyway, but not like that. You're right. Testing pet-friendly shops. So I think some shops advertise themselves as pet-friendly. So you guys got a couple of alpacas and started testing that policy and seeing where the limits were. 48 hours recently with the top gaming team in Germany, and most recently you icing yourself with Mad Dutchman Wim Hoff. I mean, that must have been crazy.
Suffering, but the best sort of suffering I've ever endured. It was that was an experience I'll never forget.
You have done some unbelievable things, and the list goes on. That's just a subsection of it. What's the most memorable one?
I would say definitely this year has got to be. I don't know, actually. Now that you've asked me that, I was just going to come out and say Wim Hoff. I lived at Wim Hof's house for 48 hours, and he put me and a friend through the absolute test of our lives and did things that we didn't even know we were physically capable of. Namely, being in a -25 meat chiller, which, all the gangster movies, they put people in those to die, and you just freeze to death. And we were in there in our boxer shorts after just wetting our hair, and walked around for half an hour. And so that one definitely came at a time at the end of last year. I just needed some hard reset, and got given the opportunity with Thomas from yesterday, who's a good friend of ours, another channel from LA, who was going out to see him, and luckily got the invite. So that one was probably what I regard as one of the most life-changing experiences filming wise, because I mean, I've taken his method forward as a result. I'm cold showering every day. I've installed a shower on my balcony. Like I'm fully in that weird, crazy like headspace where I just absolutely love getting cold now. So yeah, that one definitely had the most lasting change. But when I mentioned that to you, actually, I realized that we also recently did a video with Judi Dench, which was like so surreal, and just something I never thought could ever happen in a million years. So there's a good few in the last year alone that have been super memorable.
Well, you keep coming out. I think the Judi Dench one was the Zoom call where you tried to get as many celebrities on the Zoom call, right?
Yeah, that was it. It just made me like, me and Jay after that call, I remember, because we were obviously stuck in the flat because of lockdown, and we were banging our head against the wall thinking, what can we do that's creatively amazing and as big as we want to kind of do? All our videos need to feel big, or at least like we've achieved something quite mad. And it was after that call that we just looked at each other and we're like, what just happened? Like, literally, what happened? Like, normally you'd have to go through layers and layers and layers of her team, her people, like all these people that are close to her, and protecting her time, rightly so. And normally, you know, even to get her on a TV show, she'd need something to promote. Otherwise, I'm sure she wouldn't bother. But yeah, we just went direct to her grandson, who probably has a very special place in her heart, and was able to convince her to get on a Zoom call to give a nice little monologue to the rest of the unsuspecting people in there. So yeah, that was very special, that moment.
Amazing, amazing. We'll come back to the question of how you come up with these ideas, but there's a lot of people who are probably watching, thinking, God, you know, you guys have built this channel in record time, almost grown very, very quickly. You've clearly found the formula that works. Give us your top 5 tips for anyone who's looking for inspiration on how to start a YouTube channel. Your top 5.
Yeah. I will just say we found a formula. We haven't found the formula. The thing with YouTuber, and the beauty and the annoyance of it sometimes, is that no matter what you think is working, there will be a complete opposite version which is also working as well, if not better than you. So yeah, that's the beauty of the platform. But I mean, our method is yeah, our kind of formula at least is viral friendly ideas and kind of regular content. But yeah, I mean, I'll dive straight into it because I have had to think on this. I want them to be good. I'd say number one, before we even get into anything technical, why are you doing it, right? I'd ask yourself why you were doing it, and I'd start from a passion point. If you're going to start from a passion point, I believe that is the rocket fuel that is going to get you through some of the harder, longer, more kind of difficult, just like disappointing times that the platform will probably offer you up at the start. My passion point, for example, was like, I loved filmmaking, so I was making videos all throughout my kind of childhood before there was even really a reason to do so. I love storytelling. I love like the idea that when our grandparents were, and our parents for that matter, were growing up, they can get nostalgic by looking through photo books, but now we have just the idea of me being an old man and having like a grandchild, like grandchildren around me, and just showing them what me and my best mate have been up to when we're in our 20s, like, is just such a amazing, like, we're the first kind of generation of people to ever do that. So the idea of telling those stories for the world and just for my own family in the future is incredible. And then that, coupled with like just an urge to live life on my own terms and have constant adventure and not live a life that I'd kind of regret when I'm older. That is kind of the Zac and Jay Show. So that is my passion. It drives me. That is, I wouldn't want to live life any other way. And that is kind of shown through our videos. I mean, the concepts and stuff that we try and execute on, they're big ideas, right? There's easier things to do on the platform. There is, you know, not to discredit any other sort of content, but there is easier videos to make. But I wouldn't have it any other way. I want to go out and do these things, and I want to experience life firsthand through the videos. So that's where I started, and that is what drives us through some of the harder times on the platform. Swiftly carry on. Number 2, expect nothing for a while. Now that sounds quite depressing. It sounds quite dark, dingy, but if you're growing a channel and you want to make it a job and you want to make that switch over to a job, it's not going to happen overnight. I mean, like you said, Craig, you were very nice in saying we grew our channel very fast, but we had a great start off point where I was doing a YouTube channel beforehand. So we skipped the hardest point, which is 0 to 1,000 subscribers. Is the most disappointing, soulless slog that you can ever imagine. You're probably making great stuff, or you're putting stuff out into the world that you genuinely care about, and no one cares, and no one's seeing it, and just battling with that internally is hard. Like, first off, making a decision to put yourself out there in public scrutiny, in front of your friends, your family, whatever, is inherently quite a weird thing to do to start with, because you are essentially talking to no one. It's a lot easier to justify if we're broadcasting to 100, 200, 300,000 people. So making that first decision to just acknowledge you're going to do it, and you're going to do it for a while before anyone even bothers or cares to watch, takes a little kind of mental strength to get through, because yeah, it's a long old slog, that part. And actually recently I watched a great video called The Gap, and it's actually hosted on Vimeo by like some crazy filmmaker, and it basically is talking about the gap is the time between where you have great taste, right? So you know what content you like, you know what sort of stuff you want to be making, you know what you're passionate about, but there's a gap in skill, basically, and you're basically producing work that you find disappointing for however long that is. But in order to close that gap, the only thing that you can do is just keep making content, or keep making whatever it is you want to make, and you'll gradually close the gap. But in that gap is, as I said, a lot of like scrutiny. There'll be hate. There'll be like you second guessing yourself. There'll be other people like telling you just quit. There'll be like realistic like other things that you can go and do. There's all this stuff, and the only way to like basically close that gap is output and time, ultimately. So being realistic, and not everything happens overnight. I think like viral success is seen as this like golden egg which everyone's shooting for, but you need to build a foundation and kind of get the quality of work to where it needs to be in order to really build a quality audience, I think.
Well, there's no as an overnight success, right? And if there is, it's certainly a very long night. But what you're saying, actually, yeah, for me, this is a hobby, not a job. I do it because I love it and enjoy it and find it an interesting adventure. But I'm in that gap. I've got, in January 2021, I've got 720 subscribers, I think, at the moment. So sort of in that gap between 0 and 1,000 right now.
Yeah.
Private session after this. You need to give me some coaching.
yeah definitely. Yeah it's a hard old slog. Like it just is, and it's like people, I remember when I was starting, it's just like we were doing, and Jay was kind of actively involved from the get-go, really. It was only the Zac and Jay Show when we first went into business with each other, but we were doing such crazy stuff that I was like, people know, well, I know that people will find this mad because my mates find this mad, and they are representative of normal people our age. It just needs to be seen. If it's seen by more people, then more people will appreciate it, and then more people will give a shit, and then more people will start to tune in. But yeah, you do second guess yourself, so because so many times where it should happen and then it doesn't, and I mean, nothing should happen. Do you know what I mean? The platform's just like such a mystery, but yeah, it's the mental side which I think which pulls you through, and that's why it goes back to point number one. Like if you don't have a passion for whatever it is you're making, then you're really gonna tap out early on the hard times. Number 3 is more of a practical one, and that is based on thumbnails. And I categorize this, like me and Jay categorize this by the squint test. Unfortunately on YouTube, like the algorithm, that I'll get to that and why that makes sense in a minute. But on YouTube, unfortunately, the algorithm kind of trumps all, really. And I'd say back in the day, like there's this, like when YouTube first started, the content was a lot different, and obviously over time that's going to change, but thumbnails and titles seemed less important. And me and Jay had like a rude awakening to that when we were already kind of 100,000 subscribers deep, really. And you just got to imagine your experience as a viewer on YouTube and how you pick content, and it's serving you up so many options, and there's just a million and one great pieces of content that's in front of you because the algorithms already knows what you want to watch. And how do you distinguish between what you're doing? And most of all, it's a kind of, it's a subconscious thing which you won't even realize. Really, you'll make a decision in the first like half a second, and so to even get yourself in the mixer with that, you need to have an eye-catching thumbnail. And the squint test is, if you can make out what it is when you're squinting, that almost represents the subconscious brain, which doesn't know what it is but knows it's interested. And once you get that initial attention, there's way more chance that those people are going to then click on it. And it also has to work in tandem with the title, basically. So we used to shoot for kind of curiosity evoking titles where the viewer will kind of fill in the blank in their head. So if it's something, we broke into this event, or we snuck on stage at this event, gone wrong, that immediately poses the question, oh my God, what could have went wrong? Blah, 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 blah. That's interest. So then hopefully that results in a click. The reason why that's so important is because, I mean, yeah, if no one's clicking your videos or clicking through on your videos, unfortunately, YouTube reads that as people don't care about this content. So then they'll start serving it to less people, and less and less and less, and then eventually till it goes to zero. So yeah, you want to get a good amount of people clicking through. And this is actually, Craig, on your channel where I've seen could improve drastically. A lot of your thumbnails, just in the last 4 videos, there's 2 thumbnails which are almost identical on the Super 73. Very cool bike, by the way. But if I was viewing that, it looks too professional, I'd say. It looks like well, it is a photo that's probably like they've taken for their website or something like that. Whereas I don't know why I'd want to click that unless I'm looking into like a proper review from the company. But I think YouTube is based on real people and real kind of reviews. I'd want to see like a face there. I'd want to see like someone that I can trust or gauge to get their opinion on this bike. Or yeah, I think you're always looking to put people first on YouTube. People like to see people. They like to engage with characters. They like to engage with like personalities, I'd say. So yours almost looks too polished in a sense.
Wow, I never thought I'd get that feedback, but I do appreciate the feedback's a gift. I feel like I'm getting live coaching here. I better get busy.
I'll tell you what's a good one actually, Craig. Now that I've said some bad stuff and I've slated you, the one in front of oh God, what building is that? Why don't I know what building it is? That the Queen's house, Buckingham Palace. The one in front of Buckingham Palace is great, and weirdly that's got more views. It's got nearly 2,000 views. So that's like, I don't know, that seems more YouTube friendly content.
Yeah.
That screams like you'll see you testing it out in the real world scenario situation in London. That it, like subconsciously that's what it puts out. And yeah, so good stuff on that one.
Amazing, thank you.
Number 4, done is better than perfect. I've robbed this from a filmmaker on YouTube called Peter McKinnon. The reason why this is so prevalent is because so many creators are perfectionists, like I was when I started, and as a result I just didn't put out many videos, and as a result I was underrated, or the channel wasn't growing as I would have liked it to. And I realized that was a big problem after watching one of his videos, where you as a creator will only see, and if you're editing your videos especially, you will only see improvements. You'll be your own harshest critic. You'll see and you'll know, back to the kind of gap thing, where you want that video to be, and that gap may be in your skills, or it may be perfectly possible but on a platform where, you know, content is king, and these the videos need to be going out at a consistent rate, you're not gonna stay to a structure or get the content out in a sort of consistent way if you're being a perfectionist. And what comforted me is that the audience will only see what you put out, and they won't have these ideas or versions of the video which you think it could be at, or they won't see, if you edited it slightly differently, what it could have been. They just won't think like that. They'll take it for face value. They'll enjoy the content, hopefully, and you can just get over that mental hump, because yeah, I struggled on that for like a good year and a half, and I made great videos and I'm happy at them, but even now I look back at them and think they're terrible because my skill level has improved. So I'm already looking back at them thinking I could improve, but that is normally a great thing anyway, if you look back and see the improvement. So yeah.
Speaking of perfectionism as well, one of the things I hear really often from people who are starting out or want to start out is, yeah, but I don't have a really good camera, I don't have a crew, I don't have proper professional lighting. Do you agree with all of that? What do you think about equipment?
I was the same, but I give myself the excuse because I was like a videographer beforehand. I wanted the quality to be somewhat there, and I needed a kind of, not a super expensive camera, but I needed a reasonably priced camera to do my videography work that I was balancing with YouTube anyway. But yeah, I think a lot of people they're so obsessed with the look or the fit. They think the quality of the content comes from the production value, when on YouTube, like, it's such a catch-22, because I think as a creator you want your content to be as good as it can be, but there's different layers to good, right? Like, what makes a good YouTube video could be the idea, it could be the idea, the execution of the idea, the storytelling. Like, I think our videos are very storytelling driven, with like voiceover, and we're really trying to, like, it's episodic format, right? So we don't really talk much else about other stuff going on in our lives. It's just about the content of the video and that mission, so to say. So I realized early on the production value didn't necessarily matter. It needed to be at a certain level just to tell the story in the best way we can, but we're never going to get shiny, set up, perfect audio, non-shaky shots, because what me and Jay do is run and gun, and we're running rounds like madmen trying to capture all this stuff. So you need to pick your battles, really. Like, we've had ridiculous production levels on branded content, for example, where we hired a whole restaurant, hired a whole cinema, had a 10-man camera team operating remote control cameras in a restaurant, and not one comment out of the 1,000 or so that there is says, wow, this production level is great, guys. It was a full-on TV production, and yet nobody cared. All they cared about was the concept and the idea and the execution. So you can take comfort in that, knowing that the bar is low, and there is, in fact, an example of that. I don't know who they are, but there was a girl last year who decided to live in a van in America. She had a pet snake, and she lived an interesting life, right? That was as a 20-something-year-old, she made a choice to go live in a van with her pet snake. And she grew to a few million subscribers in literally 5 months or so. And she shot and edited everything on an iPhone. So that is one of the most extreme versions of, like, it doesn't matter whatsoever. Like, it doesn't matter. So yeah, and that's the beauty of the time, right? We're living in a time where you can shoot and upload something within 2 minutes, and it's out there for the world to see. That doesn't necessarily mean it would be seen by the whole world, but like, the bar to entry is so much lower than it's ever been. So totally. Yeah, don't use that as a reason not to start.
Well, I started my channel, and very deliberately so, just with a smartphone, because I wanted to test the extremes. Of course, I use a Google Pixel phone, Zac. It's a very good camera phone, and I'm sure a lot of your content's shot on smartphones still, right? Because as you say, you're running around. Sometimes you can't carry big equipment with you.
Yeah, and especially on some of the more low key things that we have to do. If we're like, we snuck into the BAFTAs once, and we were walking down the red carpet. So if we were there with a big DSLR camera holding it up with a big lens, it could be mistaken for a gun or a weapon, which we've actually had to consider sometimes when we're sneaking into places, and B, it's just not realistic. Like an iPhone, everyone has them, everyone takes selfies. So yeah, like you said, whether it's an iPhone or a Google Pixel, I'm sure they're both great for the job. But yeah, it's we use iPhones all the time, and no one notices or no one cares.
We'll have to get you a Google Pixel so you can get even higher production quality. Good.
Shots fired.
Done better than perfect. Love it.
Yeah. The final one then is, why should they give a shit? I find that is an interesting question to ask yourself when you're making content. There is just such an abundance. I don't know the figures, but I think it's like there's billions of hours of upload, like videos to watch every day or week. So when there's never been more competition than ever to set yourself out from the crowds and kind of gain any sort of momentum, why should people give a shit about your content? And I think if you ask yourself that and you're honest, and then you'll get some pretty interesting answers. I knew early on that I was not interested in making videos about my trip to Tesco's or I don't know, just what you see some vloggers do. That's one subset of content. I was interested in these big what I call like game-changing ideas, and so that's what I pursued. And it's a lot harder to execute and plan, and kind of there's no guarantee any video will work, but that's what I feel like people will give a shit about, and that's why I give a shit about. So that's a great match.
Well, five top tips there from Zac, and you're totally right on the last one, right? We're in somewhat of an attention economy, and I'll give you a number. There's 500 hours of video uploaded every minute, 24/7, just to YouTube. So why should they give a shit?
Yeah,
absolutely right. Very good question. How do you attract attention in the context of all of that content? And aren't we lucky? We're spoiled for choice, right?
exactly. Yeah.
You've got some amazing content, and I'm really curious. And we'll end with this question: how do you come up with these ideas? You're doing this with your best mate, Jamie, and but each event is sort of like a blockbuster movie. It's an incredible idea. In some cases, you travel to foreign countries. Obviously, not at the moment. We're filming in COVID lockdown conditions.
Yeah.
But what's your process? What's your ideation process?
Do you know what? It's one of the most common questions we get around, like, are you scared you're gonna run out of ideas? Like, how do you come up with these ideas? Now we are trying to be more scheduled with it, basically, and kind of put in, especially now that we're both apart. Jay's in Manchester, I'm in London. That it's more important than ever that we're putting time every week to kind of talk about these things, and just to get excited about ideas. I think, like, there is inspiration everywhere. Like, there's a lot of stuff happening in the world, that a lot of bad, but there's also a lot of great stuff. And I don't know, inspiration comes from everywhere, I suppose. But now we're just basically scheduling an hour or so. We have a coffee beforehand, so we're nice and sharp. I might have a cold shower beforehand. I try and do that, and yeah, we just talk about ideas that interest us, and that we think is going to be a good time to go and film. And whether that's, I don't know, the content sits in all sorts of different places. We do videos in social good. We do some videos just for the hell of it because we know it'll be a great experience. There's some which are more like story driven, where we have like a whole kind of story to tell and a background to give. But yeah, it's just, that's the beauty of the job, right? We get to do whatever we want to some degree. And yeah, it's just, all of these ideas are just things we genuinely want to do and want to explore on. So there is no real kind of formula to any of this. I know, like, Mr. Beast does mad techniques, like look through a dictionary and brainstorm on those kind of words, but we've never really found that necessary. We found our problem in kind of overpopulating that list, and then almost falling out of love with certain ideas because they've been on the list for so long, when in reality, like, all of these ideas came from a place of wanting to do them once upon a time. So we're not really sure. But I think one thing I will say is, once you switch your mind to looking for inspiration in things, whether that's watching the news, watching other people's content, on Reddit, on Twitter, wherever, then ideas, you're in an idea kind of creating mindset, and they'll come to you out of the blue in the shower, whether you're asleep, like, and I have a notebook by my bed just for that reason. It's the same with most stuff, right? If you switch your attention to that thing, your brain will notice more of that thing. And normally an example which I can think of is like when, I don't know, someone you know gets a new car, and suddenly you start noticing all those same cars on the road. It is just kind of how your brain will work. And me and Jay both do this for a living, so we know we're going to have to keep re-upping the fresh ideas. So our brains just kind of do the work in the background, and when we go to discuss them, we seem to have lots of ideas all the time.
Well, however you articulate your process, please keep doing it. You guys are seen as a high watermark in what innovative creativity looks like. Zac Alsop, you're an inspiration. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Craig, thanks for the time, my friend. Great to talk.